dust of Edo, the fragrance of Chandramallika. The sun had yet to fully reveal itself from behind Mount Fiji. A soft violet hue colored the sky over Edo. A thin veil of mist lay over the Sumida River. Hiroshi stood on the narrow veranda of his wooden house, holding a mug of warm rice gruel in his hands. Hiroshi was a craftsman. He made scabbards or saya for swords, but in this long-standing era of peace, more people admired the artistry of the scabbard than the sharpness of the blade. Hiroshi could hear O Han-san next door sweeping her courtyard. The mornings of Edo began with the sound of brooms. Here, no one overslept. The city moved like the hands of a clock, where order itself was a form of beauty. Straightening his kimono, Hiroshi set off toward the market. Today, he needed to gather some special wood and varnish. His walk carried a certain calm, a rhythm ingrained in the people of this Edo era. There was no rush. Time, after all, was in their hands. By the time Hiroshi reached Nihonbashi Bridge, the city was fully awake. The bridge was more than a structure. It was the heart of Japan. From here, the 5 main roads, the Gokaido, stretched out to the far reaches of the country. A group of samurai walked across the bridge, each wearing 2 swords, a long katana and a shorter wakizami. Hiroshi stepped aside, bowing his head, as was customary. Though merchants were growing wealthy, social rank still placed the samurai above all. Yet, Hiroshi noticed that their scabbards were old. With no wars to fight, their hands were now more accustomed to holding pens than swords. They had transformed from warriors into bureaucrats. Below the bridge, small boats, or bune, drifted along. From the villages came fresh radish, rice, and fish for the city. Fishmongers called out to attract customers, but there was no harshness in their voices. Edo's people spoke with measured restraint, a courtesy rare in the modern world. Returning to his own neighborhood, Hiroshi passed rows of wooden houses. Small drains carried clear water in front of each home, a testament to the Japanese obsession with cleanliness. Entering his studio, he was immediately enveloped by the smell of his craft, the sweet scent of cedarwood and the sharp tang of varnish. Beside him, the elderly Okada worked quietly. For the past 40 years, Okada had made only sword handles. "Hiroshi," Okada said without looking up, "have you noticed today's weather? The humidity is high. If you apply the varnish now, it will take longer to dry. Nature gives us what it will. Our work is to accept it." Hiroshi understood. The philosophy of the Edo period was rooted in harmony with nature. They did not seek to dominate it. They sought to be a part of it. Picking up his chisel, he began to carve a Chandramallika flower pattern, pouring his own being into each stroke. This was takumi, the dedication of the craftsman. By mid-afternoon, Hiroshi took a short break and visited Momo-san's tea shop. In Japanese life, a chaya was a center of social connection. Sitting there, he watched a group of children playing with kendama, a type of wooden toy. Their laughter echoed through the alley. An elderly man was reading a handwritten and block-printed newspaper from Kyoto. The news was simple. Somewhere a large fish had been caught, or a famous kabuki actor was performing a new play. No war, no bloodshed. This peaceful life was Edo's true treasure. Momo-san handed him a bowl of green tea, matcha. Hiroshi cupped it with both hands, feeling its warmth. He thought of the world beyond Japan, of wars and distant nations advancing in power, but what could surpass this? A simple bowl of tea and the calm afternoon sunlight. What more could one need? After finishing the tranquil afternoon tea gathering, Hiroshi returned to his studio to find the sky slightly dimmed. He froze when he noticed a figure standing in front of his house. This was no ordinary traveler. The man wore a deep gray, expensive kimono with a silk obi belt holding an exquisitely crafted katana at his waist. Yet the wide straw hat, a ronin gasa, concealed his face. Hiroshi bowed his head respectfully. The visitor spoke in a calm voice. "Are you the craftsman who can breathe the life of spring into wood?" "I am but a humble craftsman, sir," Hiroshi replied politely. "It is my duty to serve the wood." The visitor lifted his hat slightly. His eyes held a hint of melancholy, yet his jaw was firm. From his waist, he drew an old sword and placed it before Hiroshi. The moment Hiroshi touched it, his chest tightened. This was no ordinary blade. The hamon, the wavy pattern along its edge, marked it as the work of a renowned Kamakura-era swordsmith. Yet its saya, its scabbard, was worn and battered from the ravages of time. "This scabbard must be remade," the visitor said. "But I do not want any royal embellishments. I wish only for an engraving of a single fallen leaf, drifting in the autumn wind. Can you do it?" Hiroshi was astonished. Samurai typically preferred symbols of courage and valor for their swords. Tigers, dragons, or Chandramalikas. Why a fallen leaf, a symbol of impermanence? Yet he agreed. The visitor handed him some gold coins in advance and disappeared into the darkness. Hiroshi realized that even in this peaceful Edo city, many untold histories lay hidden. That night, Hiroshi could not sleep. He sat at his wooden table, staring at the sword. Suddenly, heavy boots echoed outside, and lantern light flickered in the shadows. He peered through the window. It was the Machibugyo, the city patrol. In Edo, the administration was strict yet orderly. Each neighborhood had gates, or kido, which were closed at 10 o'clock. To move from one district to another required special permission. Hiroshi saw the guards courteously helping an elderly man across the street. This blend of authority and compassion made Edo one of the safest cities in the world. The administration, under the bakufu or shogunate, collected taxes primarily in rice. Farmers gave a portion of their hard-earned harvest to the samurai, who in turn protected the city. Hiroshi thought if the taxation had been unjust, this city's peace would not endure. Here, order allowed ordinary people to sing and paint freely. Around midnight, a commotion erupted in Hiroshi's neighborhood. Shouts rang out in the alley, "Hiki! Hiki! Fire! Fire!" Edo's houses, built of wood and paper, were vulnerable. Fire was the city's greatest enemy, historically called the flowers of Edo. Hiroshi quickly packed his precious tools into a cloth bag. The Hikishi, or fire brigade, had already arrived. To the people, these firefighters were heroes. They did not merely douse flames, they cut down surrounding houses to stop the fire from spreading. Remarkably, even in this moment of danger, there was no chaos. Ohan-san led her children calmly towards an open field. Men formed lines, passing buckets of water. Hiroshi joined in. Amid the heat of the flames, he realized Edo's true beauty was not in its architecture, but in the collective spirit of its people. By dawn, the fire was under control. Only a few houses had burned. On his way back to the studio, Hiroshi saw that those whose homes had been destroyed were already planning reconstruction without complaint. The people of Edo believed that all things were transient. Why fear rebuilding? The next morning, as Hiroshi began work on the mysterious samurai's sword scabbard, a new thought dawned on him. He understood why the visitor had requested the fallen leaf design. This city, too, was like a leaf, beautiful, vibrant, yet always at the mercy of fire or the flow of time. He began carving into the wood so that each stroke told a story. He realized that the serene life of Edo was more than mere luxury. It was a philosophy. It taught satisfaction with simplicity, and that true valor lay in rushing to the aid of one's neighbor in times of peril. The morning was somewhat overcast. Hiroshi, with careful hands, applied the final coat of varnish to the special sword scabbard. Just then, a familiar, deliberate knock sounded at the door. The mysterious visitor had returned. But today, he was not alone. 2 bodyguards accompanied him. Hiroshi noticed a family crest, a mon, embroidered on their kimonos, a circle enclosing 3 oak leaves. A slight tremor ran through Hiroshi's hands. These were marks of high-ranking officials from the powerful Tosa domain. Hiroshi bowed and placed the sword before them. The visitor removed his hat and straightened. His face was now fully visible, a middle-aged man with sharp, penetrating eyes. He picked up the sword and examined the scabbard. The fallen leaf engraving was so vivid it seemed as if a real leaf had been caught in mid-air on the wood. "Exquisite," the visitor exhaled. "I knew you could do it. My name is Sakamoto Shinzen. I am a special inspector for the shogunate. Hiroshi, do you know whose sword this is? It belonged to my father, who dedicated his life to protecting peaceful Edo. Samurai today have forgotten the art of the sword, indulging in sake and entertainment. But I want this fallen leaf to remind me that our time too will end one day, and that honoring the present is true valor." After Sakamoto departed, Hiroshi felt a strange serenity. With some gold in hand, he decided to visit the outskirts of Yoshiwara, the entertainment district beyond the great Nihonbashi market. One hallmark of Edo was the rise of merchants. While samurai held social status, wealth was in merchants' hands. Passing through the district, Hiroshi observed large fabric stores called echigoya, precursors to modern department stores like Mitsukoshi. Inside, silk kimonos were displayed elegantly. Women of the upper classes arrived in palanquins to shop. Edo women were meticulous with their hairstyles, kanzashi, and makeup, oshiroi. Hiroshi noticed that commerce here was more than buying and selling. It was a dialogue of taste. A merchant bowed at a 90-degree angle to incoming customers, a gesture of utmost respect. Such etiquette formed the backbone of Edo's economy. Back in his studio, Hiroshi had a friend, Takashi, a scholar who had access to foreign books brought by Dutch merchants, known as rangaku. That evening, over conversation, Takashi told Hiroshi tales from ancient Persia. "You know, Hiroshi," Takashi said, "just as we are divided into small domains under the shogun, thousands of years ago, the great Persian emperor Darius did the same. They, like us, built roads to send messages swiftly on horseback, much like our Kaido, the highways of Edo." Hiroshi marveled at the vastness and diversity of the world, yet the principles of governance seemed universal. Without proper order and taxation, no empire endures. The Persian Daric and Japanese gold koban, both symbols of peace and prosperity. The next day, Hiroshi visited his friend Hiroshige, a renowned ukiyo-e artist. Hiroshige's studio was scattered with vibrant depictions of mountains, rivers, and everyday life. "Why do you paint only common people?" Hiroshi asked. Hiroshige smiled. "Because it is the common people who are the soul of Edo. See those crossing the bridge in the rain with umbrellas, or the fishermen casting nets in the morning mist. What could be greater art than this? Edo is the floating world, ukiyo. Nothing is permanent here, so we must capture every fleeting joy." Hiroshi realized that his wooden creations and Hiroshige's paintings were both a fight against time. They sought to immortalize the serene city life for history. One of Edo's greatest attractions was its Matsuri, or festivals. That day, the Sumida River hosted a fireworks festival. The city seemed bathed in light. Hiroshi stood by the river, watching thousands of people in kimonos. Boats were adorned with music and food stalls. The glow of massive lanterns turned the river silver. As colorful fireworks burst in the sky, no fear or sorrow marred the faces of the crowd. They merely savored the beauty of the moment. This safety and joy did not appear spontaneously. behind it lay decades of strict administrative order and mutual respect. Hiroshi felt the coin given by the samurai in his pocket. He realized that peace was not a gift, it was a practice. By the mid-1830s, an invisible unrest had begun to stir in Edo. While Hiroshi worked in his studio, he noticed that prices in the market had suddenly risen. The cause was some unscrupulous officials, or meske, who secretly imposed extra taxes on farmers. Hiroshi's neighbor, the elderly Okada-san, sat with a heavy heart. "Hiroshi, the price of rice has doubled in the past month. If this continues, it will be nearly impossible for craftsmen like us to survive in this city. Does the shogunate not notice that some officials are lining their pockets under the guise of filling the treasury?" Hiroshi realized that the administrative system he had admired for years was beginning to rot. It was not just Japan's problem. He recalled the stories of Persia that Takashi had told him. The Persian Empire had also collapsed when satraps, or provincial governors, began oppressing their people and sending false reports to the king. One evening, a group of city patrolmen stormed Hiroshi's studio. They were led by a tax official named Heizo, notorious throughout the neighborhood for his corruption. "Hiroshi," Heizo said in a harsh voice, "I hear you make very expensive sword scabbards, but your reported income does not match your luxurious lifestyle. You must pay an extra security tax." Hiroshi protested, "Sir, I live simply. I am only a humble craftsman, and all my work is properly permitted." Heizo laughed harshly. "Can permits buy rice? If you do not pay 10 gold koban within 3 days, your studio will be sealed." Hiroshi was stunned. For a common craftsman like him, raising 10 koban was impossible. He realized that even in this peaceful city, a deep shadow was taking root. That night, Hiroshi went to his friend Takashi. By candlelight, Takashi was translating an ancient Persian administrative scroll. Hearing Hiroshi's story, he grew serious. "Listen, Hiroshi," Takashi said in a low voice. "The Persian Emperor Darius had an extraordinary system, the eyes and ears of the king. Inspectors in disguise traveled across the empire, reporting directly to the emperor where corruption was taking place. Our shogunate has a similar system, but now people like Heizo have compromised even the inspectors." Hiroshi suddenly remembered the mysterious samurai Sakamoto Shinzen. He had claimed to be a special inspector. Hiroshi sensed that only this man had the ability to stop the injustice, but where could he be found? Takashi led Hiroshi to an old eyewear shop in Edo. It was more than a shop, it was a secret haven for intellectuals and dissenters. There, Hiroshi saw many respected citizens seated, including a famous kabuki actor and a tea master. All of them had fallen victim to Heizo's corruption. They were discussing how to send a petition to the shogunate's main office, but sending a petition directly was extremely dangerous. It could even result in the death penalty. At that moment, a familiar voice came from a corner. "A petition is unnecessary. Proof alone will suffice." From the shadows stepped Sakamoto Shinzen, dressed now as an ordinary merchant. Recognizing him, Hiroshi fell to his knees. Sakamoto reassured Hiroshi, "I have been monitoring every move of Heizo for weeks. Edo is a symbol of peace, and those who poison that peace will not be spared." The next afternoon, when Heizo came to Hiroshi's shop to collect money, Sakamoto was already there. Heizo berated him, assuming Sakamoto to be just a common man, but when Sakamoto produced the shogunate's official seal from beneath his kimono, Heizo's face went pale. "You have not only overtaxed ordinary people, you have violated the trust of the shogun. Just as Persian emperors punished corrupt judges, so too will justice find you." Heizo was tried in the heart of the city. He was dismissed from his post, and all his property was confiscated and distributed among the victims. Peace returned to the city. Rice prices began to fall. Hiroshi returned to his studio and saw the faith in people's eyes restored.
They understood that as long as honest men like Sakamoto served in administration, Edo's peaceful city life would endure. Hiroshi began a new project. Instead of the Chandramallika flower, he carved a sunflower, its face turned to the sun, smiling. He understood that no matter the darkness, in the end, the light of justice prevails.
The year was 1837. Life in Edo remained as serene as ever, yet at the Sumida River docks, fishermen had begun whispering of a strange sight. To the south, enormous iron ships had been seen, their smokestacks belching thick black clouds. People called them kurofune, the black ships. In Hiroshi's studio, work was light that day. He sat with Takashi examining a new map. Takashi said, "Hiroshi, our isolation, this Sakoku, will not last much longer. The Americans and British want to trade with Japan. They aim to bring their mechanical civilization into our peaceful life." Hiroshi held his carving chisel and pondered. He knew that if the outside world entered, Edo's handcrafted art might lose its value. People would favor cheap factory-made goods over the perfect work of craftsmen. At that very moment, an urgent summons arrived from Edo Castle. Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu was organizing a grand cultural festival intended to showcase Japan's art and splendor to the world. Hiroshi was tasked with creating a scabbard for a special sword in the shogun's personal collection, a symbol of Japan's 250 years of peace. It was the greatest opportunity and challenge of his life. That night, sleep eluded him. He wondered how he could capture the essence of Japan. He did not want merely a painting, he wanted to carve a living history. He began with Mount Fuji, flowing beneath it the Sumida River, and along its banks countless Chandramallika and cherry blossoms bloomed. He added ordinary people, fishermen, farmers, and craftsmen whose labor sustained the empire. As he worked, Takashi's words about the Persian administrative system echoed in his mind. When enemies approached Persia, the emperors encouraged their artists and craftsmen, knowing that national pride would grow through culture. The shogunate of Edo thought similarly. They understood that while their military might could be challenged, Japan was unparalleled in art and culture. This cultural prestige could be their greatest shield. Hiroshi blended Persian geometric patterns with Japanese naturalism, a subtle harmony he had learned from Takashi's books. On the day of the festival, Edo Castle glittered with thousands of lanterns. Samurai were adorned in their finest attire. As Hiroshi presented his work to the shogun, silence enveloped the room. When the shogun drew the sword from its scabbard, the light seemed to reflect off the steel in every corner of the chamber. And upon seeing the peaceful Edo scene carved onto the scabbard, all present were mesmerized. Sakamoto Shinzen, now a high-ranking advisor, leaned toward Hiroshi and whispered, "Hiroshi, today you have carved more than wood, you have immortalized this moment of peace. Even if black ships arrive from across the seas, your art will remind the world of who we were." After the festival, Hiroshi returned home. The night was deep, and mist gathered over the Sumida River. He knew that life might change by tomorrow. Gunfire might roar, smoke might fill the city, but the calm, cool night air, the gentle laughter of the people, and their mutual respect, these would never be lost. In the corner of his room, he wrote in his diary one final time, "Peace is not merely the absence of war. Peace is giving your all in every endeavor and finding beauty in the smallest things around you." Thus, the tranquil city life of Edo etched its name into history. Craftsmen like Hiroshi and honest administrators like Sakamoto together created a world whose order and artistry continue to inspire modern Japan.